Hollywood broke people alongside their dreams. For decades, powerful executives ran a system designed to trap young women who simply wanted to act, and everyone knew about it. Directors looked the other way, agents played along, and studio lawyers protected the machine without saying a single word. This resulted in a total suffocating silence. The industry buried this nightmare for more than a century. 10 real women had their livelihoods, dignity, and bodies twisted by a system that treated them as commodities instead of artists. While some survived, others did not. But all of them deserved better treatment, starting with Marilyn Monroe at number 10. At number 10 is Marilyn Monroe. People recognize her name and image, but few understand the agonizing reality she endured to reach that status. Monroe arrived in Hollywood in the late 1940s, holding no money, no connections, and zero safety net. She later revealed that powerful men made the unspoken rules brutally clear, demanding conditions for screen tests and contract renewals. She described this nightmare as something so common among young girls that it felt terrifyingly routine. Monroe carried that trauma until August 1962, passing away at just 36 years old. Executives used her smile to sell millions in tickets, yet they never gave her a single Oscar nomination, ending her career on a sorrowful note. Number 9 features Judy Garland, who was a child when MGM locked her down at age 14 in 1936. She was handed over to a studio apparatus that immediately seized control of her waking moments, and executives openly called her their little hunchback. They fed her a diet of cigarettes and amphetamines to keep her thin for the camera, while bosses allegedly encouraged male colleagues to touch her without permission. The audacity of this behavior became clear when she exposed the abuse publicly during the 1960s, long before society used terms like harassment. By the time she died in 1969, at age 47, her body had endured decades of chemical dependency, sparked when she was barely a teenager. A corporate machine put that in motion, making millions off her face while crushing her spirit. Number 8 is Hedy Lamarr, known as the actress who invented the technology behind modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Most people miss the devastating price she paid early on, beginning with her first film shot in Czechoslovakia in 1932, which featured scenes her controlling first husband forced her to perform. Escaping that marriage meant fleeing to London, but the exploitation followed her straight to California. Producer Louis B. Mayer allegedly locked down her image and contracts so tightly she earned practically nothing from her most iconic roles. The end result saw one of the smartest figures in Hollywood history die destitute in 2000, leaving her brilliant legacy financially exploited. Number 7 brings us to Shirley Temple, the biggest box office star in America between 1935 and 1938, despite being a young child. In her autobiography written much later, she detailed a meeting with a major studio producer who suddenly exposed himself to her when she was just a teenager. Her only defense was to laugh in his face before walking out of the room. The true horror lies in the aftermath, as Temple described this behavior as something that happened so regularly to young actresses that she considered herself fortunate for getting away untouched. Hearing her describe that escape as fortunate reveals the deeply unsettling reality of the era. At number 6 is Kim Novak, Alfred Hitchcock's preferred actress in the 1950s and the star of Vertigo, a masterpiece the British Film Institute ranked as the greatest film ever made. Behind that glittering facade sat Columbia Pictures boss Harry Cohn, a man Novak has spoken about with barely concealed rage. Cohn allegedly treated her like property, dictating who she dated, and making her working life a constant and exhausting exercise in navigating men who believed they owned her. She eventually walked away entirely, moving to an Oregon farm in the early 1970s. Her sudden disappearance from the industry was a direct result of that relentless mistreatment. Number 5 features Kim Basinger, the Academy Award winner for Best Supporting Actress in LA Confidential. Long before that 1998 Oscar win, Basinger endured grueling stretches where she described feeling like a cheap product traded between powerful men. She filed for bankruptcy in 1993, following a disastrous film deal collapse and a resulting lawsuit. Her story captures a sickening pattern seen across dozens of Hollywood trajectories, where women who resist the system get financially crushed, while the men running it walk away entirely unaffected. This unequal punishment created a deeply unjust professional landscape. Number 4 is Lupita Nyong'o, an Oscar winner and 2-time Academy Award nominee by 2026. She published a devastating essay in the New York Times in October 2017, detailing multiple predatory encounters with producer Harvey Weinstein that began when she was just a student at the Yale School of Drama. Nyong'o described a deliberate pattern of escalating pressure where casual invitations morphed into dangerous situations, allowing a powerful predator to extract compliance from women who needed his approval to survive in the business. She wrote that she stayed quiet for so long because she thought nobody would believe her, exposing the twisted power structure she was forced to operate inside. Number 3 belongs to Ashley Judd, one of the first prominent actresses to go on record by name against Harvey Weinstein, when the New York Times published its extensive investigation that same autumn. Judd described a trap disguised as a mid-1990s hotel meeting where Weinstein asked her to watch him shower and give him a massage. She refused the demands, and immediately after, she watched her professional trajectory hit bizarre obstacles she later traced directly to that rejection. Judd told reporters she spent decades agonizing over why she felt ashamed about something a predator did to her, wondering why the victim is forced to carry the guilt. Asking that question required immense courage and kicked the door wide open for hundreds of other survivors. Number 2 is Rose McGowan, whose name remains completely inseparable from the story of how Hollywood's abuse culture finally shattered. McGowan spent a long time speaking in vague public terms about an assault by a studio head before naming Weinstein directly in 2017. She lost roles, was dropped by cowardly agents, and watched her stardom collapse in real time after she refused to stay quiet. She kept talking anyway, showing a willingness to absorb severe industry punishment rather than suppress her truth, which is the main reason this information is public today. She paid a steep price most people would never accept, and she did so with undeniable resolve. Number 1 focuses on Gwyneth Paltrow, who at 22 years old was summoned into Harvey Weinstein's hotel suite in 1994. He put his hands on her and made inappropriate suggestions about what she needed to do to advance in the movie business. Paltrow left that room in disgust, called her then-boyfriend Brad Pitt, and explained the situation. Pitt confronted Weinstein directly at a film premiere, and Weinstein reportedly responded by threatening Paltrow and demanding she never breathe a word of it again. She stayed silent for 23 years, and later went on to win the Academy Award for Best Actress for Shakespeare in Love in 1999, which was a Weinstein-produced film. This created a sickening dynamic, where the predator who assaulted her produced the movie that made her a global icon, forcing her to accept a trophy from his hands and endure severe psychological strain. Paltrow stepping forward in 2017 acted as the primary catalyst that motivated 100 other women into coming forward. Weinstein was convicted of rape and criminal sexual assault in New York in 2020, followed by an additional conviction and sentencing in Los Angeles in 2023. He eventually died in prison in April 2024, closing that specific chapter of industry history. This collective history reveals that every woman on this list possessed undeniable talent and sacrificed greatly for their craft, yet they all encountered a system that treated their gifts as commodities to be purchased rather than celebrated. The casting couch was never a myth, but rather a standard business practice that operated for decades with the full knowledge of agents, lawyers, journalists, and fellow actors. These enablers kept their mouths shut because the machine kept churning and the cash kept flowing without interruption. The global Me Too movement changed the conversation permanently by exposing this behavior to the public eye. More than 300 men in entertainment faced serious public accusations within the first 12 months, leading to job terminations and prison sentences for the worst offenders. Major institutions like the Recording Academy, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and large studios scrambled to rewrite their codes of conduct in ways deemed highly unlikely back in 1990. These broad changes only materialized because victims chose difficult public scrutiny over comfortable silence. They stood up before the public, attached their real names to the allegations, and declared exactly what had happened to them. This transparency required significant courage and often cost them cherished relationships, prominent roles, and large portions of their personal lives. Hollywood remains fundamentally unequal today, as pay gaps between male and female stars are still a reality, and toxic power imbalances persist. However, the specific era where a producer could ruin a career for refusing an inappropriate hotel room meeting without facing consequences has finally ended. This shift occurred because these women used their voices and refused to let the predatory system operate in silence any longer. Making movies remains a dream worth fiercely protecting. And the women who fought through extreme adversity to make that environment safer for everyone who follows deserve to be remembered, not as tragic victims, but as the figures who finally told the truth.